then my confidence meter continues to go up. But I am confident he'll have some type of bounce back.
Well, my first thing when I look at A&M and trying to bounce back, and I agree, Wade playing to Wade standards is key. And maybe this plays into that, but the first thing you got to do is cut that turnover that number you had.
Nonsense.
At least in half. They had 19, keep that to around 9.
Yeah.
I understand they're going to turn the ball over some. Everybody does. But 19, I think Buzz Williams would agree with you that 19 is just unacceptable, and I think it was an aberration.
Yeah.
Let's hope so.
All right, let's do 3 things that we want to see this weekend, Olin.
Well, for me, it's almost always the same because they have the recipe to win. I want to see them. Offensive rebound effectively. Get a lot of them. I want to see them get to the free throw line more than they did the other night, and then convert. I want to see them dramatically decrease that turnover.
Yeah,
right?
I agree with that.
If you do those things, and you can always throw in play their typical defense, but if you do those things, then I think that you have a outstanding chance to win the game.
That's what I want to see. I want to see a duo, okay? And I don't know what the duo has to be. I don't know if it's going to be, but I'd like to see a combination of a guard and a front court player having the kind of games that we're used to. So if that might mean Pharrell Payne having those 12 and 8 games, right? That might mean Wade and Pharrell. That might mean Zurich and Henry Coleman. But I want a duo to contribute the way we're used to seeing. They're going to need a third person, don't get me wrong, but just can we get front court play and guard play at the same time?
Yeah, who would you get? I always say that there's always one guy that's the co-star.
Yeah.
Who's that going to be?
The co-star.
It was almost, had they won, it was going to be C.J. Wilcher, but then they didn't play much in the second half. But
the co-star, so not the number 3 guy, the number 2 guy, right?
Yeah.
What concerns you about them beyond the metrics?
It's that they're going to force you to beat them from 3. They allow opponents to shoot 28%, which is top 3 best in the country. I know that's kind of A&M's defensive strategy as well, except they tend to get burned by it more often because a lot of teams will hit their open shots, whereas when Tennessee's playing, that's just not the case. Teams don't make a lot of shots when they play Tennessee, and A&M's offense doesn't really make a lot of shots in general. So when you kind of combine a team that already wasn't making shots against a defense that doesn't allow you to make shots, it's probably going to be first to 40 wins. And A&M's defense is going to do that to Tennessee's offense too. It's 2 of the 3 worst scoring offenses in the league playing against 2 of the best defenses in the country.
The 2 best defenses in the league.
Yeah, so and 2 of the top 5 defenses in the entire country. So, look, in those low-scoring games, sure, you would think that favors A&M, but Tennessee's defense is really good. The thing that makes me feel confident is the last 2 times A&M beat Tennessee at Reed, it was a top 3 Tennessee defense and a number 1 Tennessee defense. They bring in another defense that is rated very similarly and plays the same style as the last 2 ones they beat. And A&M has experience beating Tennessee in 2 different ways. Last year they made 11 threes and Wade Taylor got super hot from behind the arc and they were winning from pretty much wire to wire. And then 2 years ago they shot like 35 free throws. Wade Taylor hit 1 3, but he made 16 free throws and A&M just pummeled them inside and wore them down at the line. So there's multiple ways you can beat this Tennessee defense, and it's a defense A&M's seen every single year. They've seen them 5 times with Wade Taylor. This is going to be the 6th. So the thing that gives me confidence is the only time A&M can beat Tennessee is at home, and they're playing them at home.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. They're going to, I'm sure, use the same approach that they've had in the other games. Attack the rim, see if you can't get fouled or get a putback, attack the rim and see if you can't get to the free throw line so many times that's where you win the game.
Yeah, and that's the strategy that worked against Alabama. They did the first part correctly, and they got a favorable whistle.
Yeah, you got to make them.
They just couldn't make them.
From the Brad Cave on YouTube, Baseball Bunch, Early is going with 3 lefties for this weekend series. Do you think we will see a righty getting the starting role on the weekend in the future? If so, who do you have in mind?
Not if the 3 of them pitched like they did this weekend.
Yeah, the worst one was Lampkin, right? And you think Lampkin will bounce back?
A lot of weak contact, too, to give up those runs.
Yeah, and he was ahead of a lot of hitters.
Yeah.
He gave a lot of 2-strike hits. But if there was going to be a right-hander, I think Weston Moss is the safest bet to go in there. But right now, if you ask Michael Early and Jason Kelly, would you be okay if Ryan Prager, Justin Lampkin, and Miles Patton were your weekend guys all year? I think they'd sign off on that right now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right now.
Because that means they're meeting expectations, they're having success, and people haven't adjusted to them. It's exactly right. It's a great spot. And, this weekend is such a strange weather situation. Cal Poly had a good first game. They were really bad on the weekend, the second and third game against UCLA. I think they gave up 34 runs in those two games. So,
holy smokes.
you want to go out. They're going to have to make an adjustment. What's their pitching staff going to do that they didn't do last weekend against UCLA? I don't want the weather to affect, the fact that you can go out and maybe get their weekend starters and have, an opportunity with some time to rotate some guys in. But it's going to be pretty brutal out
Well,
there.
I do have a pretty good inkling that if you have long offensive innings, it will affect the decisions made on who goes out there to the mound the next inning because of the weather. Like, you're not going to let Ryan Prager, if he gets lathered up and gets to 65, 70, 75 pitches, then A&M scores 6 runs in an inning, he's done.
Right.
You're not going to let him sit in that cold weather and try to get hot again. It's just not worth it. So you're right, Scotty. Like, so whatever happens offensively because of the weather could impact the pitching decisions that are made.
Also, keep in mind they're still trying to make up for the innings they've lost, trying to get more guys in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. And they've done a good job of that, like you said, against Tennessee at home. Look, this is I think rankings-wise, is this as big a game we've seen at Reed Arena since when? Luke, look that up. 7 versus 6. I'm just trying to think, what was A&M ranked? What were the Aggies ranked when they beat number 1 Alabama? That was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
They weren't ranked that high. Certainly, obviously not number 7. You might have to go back to maybe one of these years where A&M was ranked really high and played Kansas.
Yeah, I was going to say it was Big 12 days.
But I think, I would bet potentially maybe 06, 07, almost 20 years ago, against LSU or UCLA early in that season. They went to LSU, Big Baby Davis. I think that was LSU's Final Four team. They got beat at LSU. That was AC Law and Jojo. That was the Sweet 16 year. And then a couple games later, they went out, or maybe even a game later, they went out to UCLA and lost to a very highly ranked UCLA. And I'd say one of those two games,
well,
or maybe some random Kansas game.
The Bama game you were talking about, A&M was 24.
Okay, there you
go. A&M was 24, Bama was 2.
Okay, so I think this might be the biggest home game at Reed Arena in terms of rankings in a long, long, long time, like almost 20 years, in terms of where both teams are. Look, Tennessee is tough. There's been times this year where I've thought, well, Tennessee's kind of slumping. Tennessee's slipping, they're, man, that's not the team we thought. I think so much of that had to do with how badly Florida smacked them around in their first meeting. Then they came back and beat Florida by 20 without Zakai Ziegler. They humiliated the Gators. So I think the only time that's happened to Florida. And again, another example of you will get it in this league if you're not fully ready to play or if your game takes a step back, particularly away from home. And that happened to Florida in that game. It happened to Alabama last night. Happened to A&M. It happened to Bama at home versus Ole Miss. It happened to Ole Miss at home versus that same Mississippi State team. It's about when you catch teams. Texas beat Kentucky. That was Kentucky without Jackson Robinson and 2 other guards. The reason Kentucky beat A&M in Lexington had was a huge part to do with Jackson Robinson heating up against his old team. So it's so much a matter of when you catch them, when you don't, where you catch them. So with A&M playing at home, there are times this year where I've thought Tennessee has been maybe they're not that 1 seed. Maybe they're not even a 2. Then you look up and you go, no, they're squarely in the 2, and they're in the mix for a 1. And you just look at their last 5, and they crushed Florida. They played Missouri. Mizzou should have beaten them.